The indigenous peoples of Oceania are those peoples identified as indigenous peoples, as per the modern global definition of the term. Many of the present-day Pacific Island nations in the Oceania region were originally populated by Polynesian, Melanesian and Micronesian peoples over the course of thousands of years. European colonial expansion in the Pacific brought many of these under non-indigenous administration. During the 20th century, several of these former colonies gained independence and nation-states were formed under local control. However, various peoples have put forward claims for indigenous recognition where their islands are still under external administration. Examples include the Chamorros of Guam and the Northern Marianas, and the Marshallese of the Marshall Islands and the native Hawaiians of Hawaii. In New Zealand, the indigenous Maori constitute nearly 15% of the total population. Most of those people who define themselves as Maori are also of European and to a much lesser extent Asian descent. The indigenous peoples of Australia are the indigenous Australians, who account for 2.5% of the total population. The term Indigenous Australians refers to both the Aboriginal peoples of mainland Australia and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Of the total indigenous Australian population, 90% identified as Aboriginal only, 6% identified as Torres Strait Islander, and the remaining 4% identified as being of both Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander origin. The independent state of Papua New Guinea has a majority population of indigenous societies, with some 700+ different tribal groups recognized out of a total population of just over 5 million. The PNG Constitution and other acts identify traditional custom-based practices and land tenure, and explicitly sets out to promote the viability of these traditional societies within the modern state. However, several conflicts and disputes concerning land use and resource rights continue to be observed between indigenous groups, the government and corporate entities,